Hello, my name's Dave Ford and this is my dog, Logan, out on another walk in the New Forest. Thanks for joining me again today. We're at a place called Setley Pond, which is just to the south of the village of Brockenhurst, just off the A337. And we're going to be doing roughly about a 3-mile circular walk, starting and finishing here at the pond. Along the way we'll be coming across, well, at least 2 pubs that I know of. Going to be going through a lovely nature reserve. We'll be coming across an old abandoned clay pit, and hopefully, if I can find the evidence, something quite interesting towards the end. Well, let's have a little look at Setley Pond while we're here. So I'm filming 15th, 16th of December. It's about 7 degrees, and although a little overcast, it's the rain's holding off at the moment, but it's a beautiful, peaceful setting here. Now, Setley Pond itself is in fact an old gravel pit that started during the first part of the 19th century. But by 1897 the gravel workings had extended southwards, and the pit was significantly bigger than the area covered by the pond today. So just looking at the pond, you can see some folk in the background with some model boats. I believe they're going to have some racing here today, so hopefully when we finish the walk we might be able to do a little bit of video footage of that. Well, we can't stand around here all day, we need to kick on. Let's go. Come on, Logan. Up we go. Pull your old dad up. Good boy. Ooh. Well, we're just making our way from the Setley Pond and we're heading east. We've just come across a pony pound. Just turn the camera around. It's not an unusual sight on the forest, as I know 20 or 30 of these dotted all around the forest in total, and they're used for the pony drift each year when the ponies are rounded up and they can be checked for, amongst other things, their health. And you can see why this one's been built here. It's a natural funnel, really, so quite a sensible way of rounding them up. And I love the way that they're deliberately built to look quite rustic, to sort of meld into the forest, and that really is to help the ponies, to make it less stressful for them. Okay, so we're now going to head down this little footpath. Now, as regular viewers will know, I have a thing about styles. Some styles are good and some styles are not quite so good, but this is a good style because, as you can see, it's got its own little trapdoor for the dog to go under. Okay, through you come. Good boy. There we go. Oh, somebody's got that very snoozy look about herself. You can tell it's midwinter though. Look at the hairy coat that she's got, keep her warm, and of course the reflective collar round her neck, just in case she goes onto the roads, and hopefully that'll get picked up by car headlights and protect her a bit. Well, we've got our first pub of the day, the Hobbler, right by the busy A337. I'll turn around and show you the actual building itself. It's quite old, it's got to be at least 2 centuries old. I believe it was once 2 cottages, and just looking at the building you can probably see how that was. And in a previous incarnation it was a bakery, and I believe at one end of the bar there is a very old oven. So at the end of the walk we can choose between that one, or there's another one later on. What do you reckon? You're not too sure? I don't think you've ever seen one of these, have you? Just behind the Hobbler pub we've got a couple of lovely alpacas. Oh, well, we'll let them be, I think. Well, I thought I'd avoided mud, but I have found some. You can see that's the path that we've just come through. To be fair, it's right at the bottom of a valley, and we have had so much rain in the New Forest over the last few months, so that's the only bit we've come across so far. And you can see we're just standing on this little bridge, and just down here you can probably hear this lovely little stream babbling away. And this eventually feeds into the Lymington River, which we've come across a number of times in our walks in the series. The Lymington River itself is 14 miles long, but there are a number of feeder rivers. Highland Water, where we met that on our Millybrook Bridge walk, and Overlord, I think we met that on the Black Knoll walk. But, okay. Right, Logan, you ready to kick on? Off we go. I've got a little uphill bit by the looks of things, but as you can see, this bit isn't muddy, which is good news. We've now made it up to the top of the hill, and we're now just about to go into the Roydon Woods Nature Reserve. I see there's a sign that tells us that we're not to do any fungi picking, so we won't do any of that. So let's kick on through here, and I'll tell you a little bit about the reserve as we meander along. It's 386 hectares. Apparently there's lots of evidence of old cottages and ancient field systems, charcoal burning and brick making in these woods. But the woods themselves were gifted to the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust in 1978. Now I can see the woods ahead. And apparently there's something like 900 species of fungi and 350 species of wild flowers in the on the reserve. So we shall have to keep our eyes peeled. Gosh, what a lovely signpost. I mean, I know signposts are signposts, but well, it's quite again, a bit like the pony pound. It melds in well with the forest. So that's the footpath to the Hobbler, which we've just come up, and the boulders a mile that way. But we're going to head into the woods. We're not going to go all the way to Brockenhurst, but that's the direction that we're going. Well, make our way through this lovely little bit of woodland. I think it's quite relatively new. It's pine trees and beautiful view in the far distance with a very significant bit of wooded area over there, which is where we're going to be headed for. But I just pan round to my right, you can see the remains of a bank, and this is clearly some form of ancient boundary bank. But, now, I did look on when I was doing some research for the walk. This particular area, there's something called Fludder's Clump. I think that's how you pronounce it. F-L-U-D-D-E-R-S. I've no idea what it is. Couldn't find anything on the internet. There was a lady out walking her dog just here. She was a local, and I said, any idea what it was? And she had no idea. So if anyone can enlighten me, please put a comment below. But just by my right, I'll turn around, puffing away because I've been walking uphill. We've got this indentation, and this is the remains of an old clay pit. There was a pretty significant brickworks here many years ago, and now just gradually being returned to nature. Looks like the remains of foundations of an old building, perhaps. And look, there's a top of a screw of some sort. I wonder if this is just a building that was connected to the old brickworks. I can only guess. Morning. Lovely day.
Yeah, it's good.
It's okay if I film you, as you'll go. Nice to be out without it raining.
Oh, it's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have a good one.
And you. Well folks, that's our second pub of the day, the Philly Inn. Right by a busy road, of course. It's a 16th century pub. I think that's where we're probably going to visit for our soup, even though I believe it does have a ghost of a highwayman who used to prey on folk in the 17th century. We're nearly at the end of the walk. Setley Pond isn't too far away from here, but I've been trying to find some evidence of an old prisoner of war camp from the Second World War, and it's round about this area. If you look up on Google Map, you can still make out where some of the buildings were. It was built in 1941, initially to house Italian prisoners of war, nearly 300 of them, and then in 1944 it was used for German prisoners of war, about 600 of those, up until as late as 1947. It was fairly low risk. I don't believe there were many attempted escapes. At the end of the war, it was then used for housing servicemen coming back from the Second World War that had originally been housed at RAF Bewley. And then in the 1960s, the housing, or huts as they were really, were used for local gypsies. That happened till about mid-1960s, and then everything was demolished. But I have found little bits of evidence. And if I turn the camera around, as you can see, there are just ponies out here now, but there's a little bit of concrete wall just sticking out here that must have been the foundation for something. And there are a few other little things I've found as well. And just again along here we can just about make out the remains of a concrete path, and I believe this was one of the main paths that went through the actual camp itself. As I always find things like that fascinating, you know, that there's no memorial plaque. You would never have known that it was here, and gradually it'll get forgotten about over time. So let's head back to the pond and see if those guys have got their model yachts out yet. Have a look at those. Well folks, we're back at Setley Pond and have finished our walk. We hope you enjoyed our little stroll around the area today. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, like, comment and subscribe, and hopefully you'll be able to join us for another walk in the New Forest sometime in the future. Now Logan and I have decided it's the Philly Inn we're going to for our bowl of soup today. In the meantime, thanks for watching and cheerio. Right, oxtail or tomato? Decisions.